Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good day. So, we will continue central force field, and now we will consider a specific potential energy. So, our potential energy is 1 upon R type. Okay. So, in Kepler problems, we consider planetary motion. So, the force, gravitational force between two astrophysical bodies, they are 1 upon R type and they are attractive. So, we have taken a minus sign, minus alpha by R, and alpha is here positive. That is what is taken. This is also the motion of a body under force that follows inverse square law. So, if the potential energy is 1 upon R type, then force which is negative sign and gradient of potential energy is 1 upon R square type. That is why it is called inverse square law. So, force in Kepler problem is 1 upon R square type. It is inversely proportional to the square of the distance of the particle or the body from the center of the force. Alpha is positive because I have put a sign negative here for gravitational force. For electrostatic force, it could be either positive or negative. Like in atoms and molecules, electrons are orbiting nucleus. So, nucleons have positive charges and electrons have negative charges. So, force is again attractive. If it is repulsive, it may not have closed orbits. Okay. So, let us do a problem that is equally true for gravitational force as well as attractive electric forces. Okay. So, total energy of the body, that is under the action of this 1 upon R square type force, we have computed already. Only thing, u of r so u of r, yes, has become now minus alpha upon r. That is the only difference here, right. Earlier we wrote potential energy as u function of r. So, there is translational energy, there is centrifugal energy, and for potential energy now we are putting a specific form 1 upon r type with a negative sign for attractive force, as the case for gravitational force and atomic and molecular arrangements. So, again this E has two parts, one is translational energy and some effective potential. Effective potential is actually potential energy plus centrifugal energy. So, these two energies are put together. Okay. If we take, so now we have a specific form of U effective. If we take its first derivative, since it depends on r only, so it is not necessary to write partial derivative, it could be exact derivative. So, du dr, if I set that equal to 0, then we will get the extremum of this potential. We can find out whether there is an extremum or not. So, we take the derivative with respect to r and set that equal to 0. So, r may have some special value which I am calling r naught. So, r naught would be the position of the extremum if there is any. Okay. So, as soon as I set this equal to 0, so you can see u of r is here. So, 1 upon r will give 1 upon r square and 1 upon r square on integration, it will give 1 upon r cube. There would be negative sign. So, here there was negative sign. So, that becomes positive, this was positive. So, that has become negative and that equal to 0. So, if we do that, so this sets a value for r 0. So, r 0 depends on angular momentum, the mass and the constant alpha which appears in the potential energy or the force. So, alpha is for gravitational thing. What is alpha? So, alpha would be for gravitational thing, gravity constant, let us say mass of heavier body and mass of the lighter one. For electrostatic problem, this could be k or 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 q, capital Q and small q, the two charges. So, this alpha could be either of this, and since sign is already taken negative. So, both the cases it is attractive force. So, this is what is the distance from the origin where this potential has an extremum. It may be minimum, it may be a maximum. Okay. So, what is the extremum value of this? So, u effective I set at r equal to r 0. So, u effective was sum of potential energy plus centrifugal energy, but at r equal to r naught. So, if I add both of them and set that equal to so how much is the value? So, we have already expression for r naught. So, this r naught I can put here. So, L square here if I put r naught. So, it would be L square mu alpha. So, it is minus 1 plus half times this thing. So, minus half alpha by 2 r 0. Okay. So, and this so here there is okay. So, I can put here alpha square mu alpha by. So, it can be written in terms of both. So, actually both are correct. So, I need not worry about this. So, u effective at r equal to r 0 is a negative quantity. That is what we have learned, and let us take its second derivative of u with respect to r. So, we have already taken first derivative here, but I have set here r equal to r 0. If we do not set and take the second derivative and now compute at r equal to r 0, what is its value? Okay. So, this turns out to be alpha upon r 0 square, which is positive all the time. So, second derivative is positive. So, extremum is minimum. So, at r equal to r 0, there is a minimum of this effective potential. So, that is what we learn. Okay. So, effective potential has a minimum at r equal to r 0. Okay. So, the potential looks something like this for u of r, which is taken as minus alpha upon r. Okay. And u effective has two parts. U effective is minus alpha upon r plus L square to mu r square. So, from here you can see if r is very small, then 1 upon r square diverges faster. So, this term becomes bigger. So, at very small value it is positive and very large value, that is what it is. When r is very large, then second term go to 0 first, because r is becoming larger. Then and the second this first term will also go to 0, but it will go slower. So, at larger value of r, this effective potential approaches 0 from negative side, and here when r is at the near the origin, it diverges and goes to a very large value, and there is somewhere at r equal to r 0, there here is r and this is u effective, which is function of r. Okay. So, now, so that is the plot. So, there is a minimum and we have found out the value of the minimum. So, if our energy of the particle is exactly equal to its minimum value, then what is going to happen? This potential has a minimum value, it cannot have a value lower than that. It can have a value always bigger than that. So, if the particle or the body under central force with potential minus alpha by r type, then energy could be minimum energy could be this negative value. So, if it is here at r 0, then phi dot is not 0, phi dot is because angular momentum is finite. So, phi dot is finite, but r dot is fixed. So, it is the case of circular motion, radius is fixed and there would be angular momentum is fixed. So, phi dot is also fixed. So, there would be circular motion. So, here if energy is as u effective at r 0, which is mu alpha by 2 L square. If energy is more than this minimum, but still a negative value, not a positive one, like this case. So, here this point it says. So, energy is somewhere here. Now, for this energy there are two radius. So, motion when the particle is moving, and at this point potential energy, effective potential energy and energy of the particle, total energy of the particle become the same. So, translational kinetic energy is 0 here. Similarly, on the other side there also effective potential energy is equal to the total energy. So, as those 2 points where arrows are indicating 2 arrows, so they are the points where r dot is 0. So, they are known as turning points. So, at this point r dot will be 0. So, their particle will not go further away from origin, and this side it will not go closer to the origin. So, motion is bounded, and motion is bounded, and it is doing a motion between r minimum and r maximum. So, that is what we saw just few minutes ago. So, motion would be between r minimum and r maximum, and this motion may be a closed, may give closed orbit or may not give closed orbit. So, if delta phi, this is the by the time it goes from from r max it starts, and it again goes to another r max. So, orbit precesses and the amount is delta phi. Let us say some integer L times delta phi, or I have used L for something else. So, let us write m. So, an integer times delta phi. So, if I take the integer, after several time it may come back to same point. So, in principle 2 pi or n times 2 pi, m and n are integers. So, if you can find two integers m and n such that m times delta phi equal to n times 2 pi, then orbit is closed. Otherwise, motion may be bounded between r minimum and r maximum, but orbit is never closed. It can keep moving in bounded region, but it will never come back to its original position. Okay. So, this is the condition for closed orbit. Condition for a closed orbit. Okay. So, that is the condition for a closed orbit. Okay. If energy is 0, then what happens? Then one side it is bounded, because here potential energy is large, but other side it just at long distance it is asymptotically going to 0. So, if it is precisely 0 and total energy is 0, total energy of the particle is 0. How can it happen? Because force is attractive. So, potential has a minus sign. So, potential energy is negative and kinetic energy is positive. So, their sum can give either a negative value or a positive value or 0. All possibilities are there. So, when you choose E negative, but more than its minimum value, then the total energy is negative, and then we have bounded motion between r min and r max. Bounded motion could be an ellipse, or it could be an open orbit, but some kind of bounded motion. At energy is 0, so it barely it just passes on the right hand side. There is nothing to prevent it. So, motion becomes unbounded and the orbit is parabola. We will come to these things once again. When energy is positive, it is clearly unbounded. One side it will turn. So, like a lot of astronomical bodies comes towards other astronomical bodies once in a while. So, it come very close and then go far away. Of course, there is a risk of collision. So, those orbits are open orbits. So, they come very close, may hit also and go back. if it survives, then it will go back. So, these kind of motions are unbounded motion, and for energy positive, the orbits or paths are hyperbolic. So, we come to these things. So, we have seen here, if energy is between U effective minimum value and 0, then motion is bounded, and for 0 or positive value, the motion is unbounded. We have either parabola or hyperbola, and inside we have either circle or ellipse that may be precessing. So, we have okay. Now, we have to find the solution of this problem like we did earlier. So, earlier we stopped somewhere, we wrote expression for delta phi, but beyond that we could not go because we did not have form of u. Once the form of u is taken, then we can try to integrate the system and solve it. So, now we have chosen this form, potential energy is minus alpha upon r. So, we can still write translational energy plus effective potential. Effective potential have two parts, potential energy plus centrifugal energy, that depends on r, 1 upon r square. So, they have been clubbed with potential and called an effective potential. And the angular momentum is conserved, and we have already learned it is mu r square phi dot. So, from here we can find out an expression for phi dot, which we had put here. We can do another thing also. We can also write d phi dt as L upon mu r square from this expression. We can write from this expression d phi dt as Lagrangian upon mu r square, and that is what is written. That means, integration over dt may be converted to d phi using this expression, as we were doing just some time ago. So, now I can integrate this phi. So, integration will give me phi, that is integral over d phi, and d phi can be written as L dt by mu r square. So, that is what is written, and L mu r square, L by r square is here, mu is put inside, and we have already an expression for dt. From here we will get dr dt, which is to r dot. How much is that? That would be 2 by mu E minus u effective and root of that. So, from here first equation we already have dr dt. That means, we have an expression for dt. dt is dr upon this one, and now dt is replaced by d phi. So, we have got an integral for phi. So, since it is indefinite integral, there is a constant of integration that I am calling phi naught, and here mu was in denominator, and here L upon mu comes. So, that mu goes inside. So, makes this 2 by mu as 2 mu. So, that is what is here. Okay. So, this is what is an expression for phi and r. Now, we have to integrate this. So, we do change of variable. 1 upon r we define as u. So, du is minus dr by r square. So, I change this integral right hand side in terms of integral for u. So, that is what is written in the next step. This phi dot is put on the left hand side. So, I have an expression for phi minus phi naught integral, you see 1 upon r square dr upon r square gives you minus du. Okay. And from denominator L is pulled out. So, L square is inside the square root. So, when L come out, this cancels with this, and in other two terms L square comes. So, here is L square, here is L square, and that is what we have. This is an standard integral. So, we try to make a whole square here. So, what we do, the first term is just written like that, and then minus this term has come here, this is inside. So, minus sign. So, this can be written as 2 u mu alpha by L square. Now, to make it whole square, I have added this term inside. So, there is a sign minus. So, basically I have subtracted this. So, now I have added this. That is all we have done. So, once it is done, phi minus phi naught can be written as integral over du, and from these two terms I take 2 mu e by L square common. So, 1 from here and mu alpha is square, L square has gone out. So, 2 e L square. So, that is what, and this term is the whole square u minus. So, this term is u minus mu alpha upon L square whole square. So, once this is done, I do one more change of variable. So, earlier we defined u as 1 upon r. Now, we define theta. I define theta such that I can write it 1 minus cos square theta. So, I want to put it some cos theta. So, this part is common. So, I define root of this cos theta is equal to that. Okay. So, I do this u minus mu alpha by L square is root of this to cos theta. So, I can find out the new differential du. So, du will be cos theta will become minus theta d theta, and this part just goes there. So, now I change my integral from variable u to theta, you see. Okay. So, what happens if I put this substitution? So, this term goes outside under root, and du will produce precisely the same term. So, this term will go outside and it will come above with d theta, that will cancel. So, it will lead to only sin theta d theta upon 1 minus cos square theta root. That is what we are going to get. So, it becomes basically integral over d theta. So, that is simply theta. So, this integral is theta, and theta is, we have defined my variable as this was the variable change. So, theta would be cos inverse of ratio of these two terms. If I take ratio of these two terms and then cos inverse, that is what is my theta. So, this integral is theta. So, that is what is written here. Phi minus phi dot is integral of d theta, which is theta cos inverse. I have taken the ratio of these two. So, now I have gone back to variable u, but we need to go to variable r. So, r is 1 upon u, u is 1 upon r. So, that is what we will do now. So, wherever I have u and I have pulled one L also, here there was L square. Okay. So, L square 1 upon L square will come out, and if I take L square outside, 1 upon L will come. So, 1 L will cancel. So, that is what I have done. So, let us multiply with L in numerator and multiply with L in denominator. So, it would be U L, and here denominator would be L, and here their L square will not be there. So, that is what is done here, L of u, and here L square has gone away. Now, in place of u, I write 1 upon r, because that is the actual variable. We want answer in terms of r. So, L upon r mu alpha by L, and denominator remains precisely the same. Now, phi minus phi dot is cos inverse. So, I put cos value of this, that would be cos of phi minus phi naught, and this is equal to this ratio. So, if I take the numerator, denominator times cos of phi into phi naught, that is what it is. So, numerator is L by r minus mu alpha by L equal to denominator times cos of phi minus phi naught. If phi naught is 0, then I can write cos phi, but phi naught depends how I choose my reference line. It may be 0, I can set it equal to 0 by doing coordinate transformation, or I can leave it. Okay. Now, I multiply, do some simple algebra. I multiply, I am trying to write, now I have already an equation for r and phi. That is what we were looking for. We were looking for an expression of r in terms of phi. So, that we have already got. However, we will try to simplify this, so that we come to a familiar form of this equation. So, I multiply throughout by L upon mu times alpha, both the sides. So, left hand side would be L square upon mu alpha r minus 1, and this side, if I put it inside, this term will become 1 plus 2 e L square upon mu L square cos phi phi naught, phi minus phi naught. So, this can be written in terms of r and phi, that is a standard form. So, 1 upon r I keep, and rest of the things, this part I call L, and this part I call E. So, this is nothing but equation of a conic section in polar coordinate. This L is called semi latus rectum. So, this L is L square by mu alpha is known as semi latus rectum. 2L is called latus rectum. Okay. Okay. And E is called eccentricity. So, expression for E in terms of energy and angular momentum of the particle under central force, that is given here. If we recognize here the term inside this circle as eccentricity, so this equation has simplified and now we have an equation of a conic section. So, if phi equal to 0, suppose phi not equal to 0, which is the constant of integration, then this conic section will look like something like this. Okay. So, there are various figures possible. I have not put circle. Circle would be the case when energy, when this energy is equal to the minimum energy of the effective potential. So, that will give eccentricity to be 0. So, in case of circle, eccentricity is 0. Okay. So, E would be minus mu alpha square upon 2 L square for circle, but other conic sections are plotted here. So, if I have taken phi naught equal to 0, then these are the conic section. This is called directrix, this is an ellipse, and at the focus I have chosen my origin, that is the center of the force, and reference line is this one. Okay. And a particle is at point P. So, at point P it has some coordinates, and coordinates are r and phi. So, P has some coordinate. So, this is called r and this angle would be phi, how much it is going from the reference line in counterclockwise direction. So, that is r phi, the point P on this circle, and phi is the azimuthal angle. Okay. To keep this clean, I am removing this, and this part is called L. So, that part is called semi latus rectum. Latus rectum is the whole length where this line passing through the focus and parallel to the directrix cut the orbits. Okay. So, for ellipse, eccentricity is between 0 and 1. What is eccentricity? Eccentricity is the ratio of the distance from the particle to the focus and distance from the particle, a perpendicular distance to the directrix. So, P f upon P q, that is the ratio. So, if it is ellipse, if particle is moving on an ellipse, then this ratio would be actually less than 1, but it would be positive. There is no meaning of anything negative, it is a ratio. Okay. So, that is less than 1. If it is a parabola, in that case eccentricity is 1. So, P f and P q, they are precisely the same, that is how the parabola is defined. So, for parabola eccentricity is 1, for ellipse eccentricity is between 0 and 1, and for hyperbola P f is always more than P q. Its distance from focus is always more than particle's distance, shortest distance from the directrix. So, eccentricity for hyperbola is more than 1. So, depending on eccentricity, there would be various kinds of orbits, and eccentricity we have already written in terms of energy of the particle, total mechanical energy, angular momentum, and the strength of those, that constant alpha. So, alpha will depend on gravitational constant and product of mass, and it may also depend on some constant times product of two charges which are showing this kind of behavior. When phi naught is not 0, then conic sections are tilted. So, if it is not 0, then what is going to be the case? So, the ellipse which I had plotted, so it would be little tilted one. So, this is focus, and let us say from its, this is making some angle phi naught, and now at we can define as we have done from focus, and similar kind of. So, this would be latus rectum. So, this is L, this is L, and there would be directrix, that is so particle is somewhere here. So, shortest distance one is, this is P, and this is my focus. So, PF and PQ, that is the notation. So, if phi naught is not 0, then ellipse or all conic section would be little tilted, that is the difference. So, I can choose my reference line by rotating by phi 0 and setting phi 0 equal to 0, or there may be problems where phi 0 is already 0. So, that is the effect of phi 0, and various kinds of possibilities are there. So, now look the various possibilities in this kind of motion. So, equation of conic section in polar coordinate is already derived, and L is called the half of the latus rectum, and it is it depends on the angular momentum, and eccentricity depends on angular momentum as well as the energy of the particle. Okay. Now, let us consider different cases which we already mentioned from the plot for effective potential as a function of r. So, now if my energy, total energy of the particle is the minimum energy U effective computed at the minimum point, or from here you can see if E is negative of mu alpha square upon 2 alpha square. So, if E is given by this thing, then it will give minus 1, 1 minus 1. So, eccentricity would be 0. If eccentricity is 0, then equation of motion would be L equal to R. So, that is latus rectum, half of latus rectum, and its position from the center is same. So, that happens in circle only. We can look back the previous. So, if these two distances become the same and it remains closed, that means as it is moving all the points have same distance. So, that is circle. Okay. Second one, if E is greater than U effective at R 0, its minimum value, but less than 0. In that case, we have two bounds, R min and R max, and path is an ellipse, whether it is closed or not, or ellipse will precess, it will depend whether delta phi times some integer is 2 pi times some other integer. If that condition is satisfied, then it would be a closed orbit, otherwise it would be an open orbit. Okay. When E is 0, total energy is 0. If total energy is 0, eccentricity is 1. So, if eccentricity is 1, then this equation becomes R is L upon 1 plus cos phi minus phi 0. So, that is what is the equation of a parabola. In this equation, if E is equal to 1, then this conic section becomes a parabola. When E is positive, then eccentricity is more than 1. For E positive, this term is giving us eccentricity to be greater than unity, and path is hyperbola in such cases. So, motion of a body under an inverse square force, which is F r is 1 upon r square, is always bounded if total energy is negative, and it is unbounded if total energy is 0 or positive. So, bounded motion is only for negative energy, and the orbits could be either a circle or ellipse, and unbounded motion for E equal to 0 it is parabola, and for E greater than 0 it is an hyperbola. Okay. So, now we come to Kepler's law. Kepler's laws are there. So, first law talks about the planet revolves around the sun. There is some closed orbit. So, what is the requirement? The total energy of the body should be negative, and it should be greater than the minimum of this potential. So, there would be a bounded motion, and Kepler's second law we have already seen. The area swept by radius vector in unit time is constant. So, here it is shown. If we forget those 1 or 2 days, that is means that we will have to adjust, then the equal time, the area swept by this radius vector, particle is moving on this ellipse and there is sun. So, on ellipse earth is moving around the sun. So, area swept by this radius vector in equal time is always equal. That is what is Kepler's second law, and all these things come very easily by constancy of angular momentum. So, mu square phi dot is constant, and this area we saw. So, area was half r square d phi. So, rate of change of area, that is A dot, was half r square phi dot. So, if mu r square phi dot is constant, then half r square phi dot is also constant, because mu is the mass of the particle, that remains the fixed. So, aerial velocity is constant, that is what is Kepler's second law. Okay. What is third law? That will also come from constancy of angular momentum. So, aerial velocity we already saw, dA dt is half r square d phi dt, and so A dot is a constant. and that constant is L by 2m. Okay. So, from here we can find out the area is integral over area and L by 2m dt by 2 mu, that is what I can do, dA dt equal to this. So, this is not mu, but m, but it is mu, L by 2 mu. So, this is L by 2 mu, there is a typo here. So, A dot is L by 2 mu. So, dA is L by 2 mu dt. So, I integrate both the sides, and if it is a periodic motion like on an ellipse, then periodic motion will have a time period. So, I am integrating from 0 to t. Okay. So, this integration will give me 0 to t, L is constant, mu is constant. So, it will give me L t by 2 mu, t is the time period. So, that is what we will get area equal to. In case of ellipse, we know this area. In case of ellipse, this area is pi times AB, and A is the semi major axis and B is the semi minor axis. So, this is what is 2 of A, and if we take in this direction, that is what is 2B. So, this is what is A and this is what is B, and there is 2 focus here. So, from focus take a line that is latus rectum, and this is my directrix, and particle is moving on this. Okay. So, for ellipse the area is pi times AB. So, if I do that, I just put there. So, time period is known. So, time period for elliptic motion is 2 pi mu AB upon L. That now A and B, they have they all depends on various angular momentum, energy, alpha, etc. So, we can express B in terms of A. So, what is for an ellipse, what is semi major axis? Semi major axis by definition given by semi latus rectum upon 1 minus E square. E is the eccentricity, and we have expression for L as well as E. We have expression for L and expression for E, right. So, we already did this. So, L is L square by mu alpha, right. L is L square by mu alpha, and here 2. Okay. So, L square by mu alpha and 1 plus 2 E L square mu square mu 2 E L square mu L square. Okay. So, I correct it. So, I have this expression for both this quantity, latus rectum of half and eccentricity. So, I can express B in terms of L. So, B square is AL generally. So, if I put that, so B would be root of AL. So, if I put that. So, I get the standard result. T is proportional to 3/2 of the semi major axis, and there are other things which are constants. Mu is the mass of the particle, alpha is the force constant, and if I put A also in terms of energy, then it would be 1 root over 1 upon E cube. So, if I take the square of time period, then we get T square of this thing, and it would be proportional to A cube. So, what is the result? Result is T square is proportional to A cube, or T square is inversely proportional to 1 upon E cube. So, square of the time period is proportional to cube of the semi major axis, or square of the time period is inversely proportional to cube of the total energy of the system. So, this is called Kepler's third law. So, that is what we did in this problem in Kepler's third law. So, you see in some of the results are independent of the form of potential. For example, angular momentum is conserved in central force field, that is independent of whether motion is elliptic, circular, parabolic or hyperbolic, or this is also independent of whether potential is 1 upon r or something else. Whatever be the motion, the result angular momentum is conserved comes from phi is a cyclic coordinate. Lagrangian does not involve cyclic coordinate. So, corresponding momentum is conserved. So, that means angular momentum is conserved. So, and the area swept by that comes from that only. So, that part, the second law would be true for all sorts of cases. The law about the time period, that is specific for planetary motion. So, those planets which are in elliptic path or special case circular path, for them the third law is true, and it is true for a specific form of potential energy. Other laws are general one, they are true for all kinds of central forces. So, that is all for Kepler's law. Thank you.